Warning: this podcast may be disturbing to some listeners. Due to the graphic nature, listener discretion is advised. Welcome from wherever you are. This is the Demon Inside podcast. I am your host, John Benham. If you would like to review another episode of the Demon Inside, you can go to Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and any podcast platform. And please, don't forget to subscribe and rate us with 5 stars. A new episode will come out once a week. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. So before I start this episode, I want to send a shout out to 2 couples that I've met in the last couple of weeks. So I met a couple at a gas station. This girl, Stephanie, she works at the Denny's right here off of 35 here in San Antonio, near Live Oak. And she had a phone that had hands on it. It was so cute but creepy at the same time. It was like 2 hands that were holding onto the phone, and it arched from top to bottom, so she could hold on to the arch like a purse. And it kind of struck me funny, so I started talking to her, and then her boyfriend Jay started talking to me, and he was in the Army. And we salute you, brother. We support our service members, past, present, and future. So Stephanie and Jay started talking to me, and I told them about the podcast, and I ended up giving them a ride home. Don't ever do that, people, because that's me. I'm that kind of person, but don't put yourself in that danger. They could have been criminals or creeps or whatever, but they weren't. They were a great couple. Now, this whole episode is going to be dedicated to my favorite couple who have been listening to every podcast from the beginning to the end. They don't listen to it without each other, which is very cute, and they're getting married sometime next year. So I'm hoping they're going to invite. But I want to send out my dedication and shout out to JR and Tiffany. You guys have really pushed me a little bit more to do this show, and I love you guys for that. And I thank you all for that. It makes me feel, along with my other, fans. It's so weird saying that. But Shannon and Aaron, I just think you guys are all the greatest, and I appreciate you guys listening to my shows. All right, let's get back to it.
He told us on camera 2 years ago he likes to kill, and now it appears he's done it again. A man serving a no parole sentence for torturing and killing a Bakersfield woman back in 2011 is now suspected of murdering his cellmate. 17's Amber Frias is joining us now with the latest on the investigation at Corcoran State Prison. Amber?
Jaime Osuna was locked in solitary confinement after his cellmate, 44-year-old Luis Romero, was found dead Saturday morning. And just a few hours ago, we confirmed that Osuna has been transferred out of Corcoran State Prison to a prison mental hospital. 31-year-old Jaime Osuna, covered in tattoos, including one of a cynic Joker smile, known for his reprehensible behavior toward his victim's family, is once again a murder suspect.
In such a tragic way.
Around 7:30 Saturday morning, 44-year-old Luis Romero, who shared a cell with Osuna, was found dead. According to officials, Osuna is the prime suspect. Osuna is serving a life sentence for torturing and killing Yvette Peña at the El Morocco Motel on Union Avenue in 2011. It was a shocking and particularly brutal murder. 17's Olivia Lavoie interviewed Osuna 2 years ago, a few days before he was convicted. He admitted to us on camera then that he killed the woman simply because he had the opportunity.
I met her like one time, then I came back the next night, and I seen opportunity. No one's there. You know, the Morocco Motel is, they got a lot of parolees right there. That parole there's a lot of people who do drugs. So if they're screaming and yelling and stuff like that, no one's gonna call the cops. No one's gonna intervene.
His victim's body was left in the motel room, knives and a pair of scissors sticking out of her back.
I did sadistically, premeditatedly, deliberately tortured and murdered Yvette Pena.
During the interview, Osuna admitted he had cruel intentions as a child.
This wasn't the first time in my life that I've committed these heinous acts. Since I was a kid, 8, 9 years old, I've killed animals. My mom would go to the store, I'll put the cat in the freezer for 15 minutes, let it out, put it in the oven, let it out, you know, stuff like that.
Osuna described murdering 2 other people, beginning at the age of 13.
The torture and all that, it's more of a trying to get a rush. It's a rush. It's an addiction. It's a drug. I would rather do that than do drugs. I'd rather do that than have sex.
Now Osuna is once again a murder suspect, fulfilling the promise he made 2 years ago. A warning, he wouldn't stop killing.
I don't have no sympathy. I'm sadistic. I really don't care. I'll do it and I'll do it again over and over and over.
Osuna's cellmate Luis Romero was serving a life with parole sentence after being convicted in Los Angeles County for second-degree murder in 1992. We have a lot of questions for the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, but they aren't answering. We wanted to know why a man who brags that he likes to kill is assigned a cellmate. We also wanted to know how well Osuna was supervised and whether he used a weapon. So far, prison officials have refused to answer our questions. We will continue to keep you updated as more details become available.
Hello, my Demon Insiders, and welcome back to the Demon Inside. I'm your host, John Venom, and today we are going to be talking about the Demon Inside, Jaime Osuna. Now, Jaime Osuna, whether he was approached by a demon at an early age or later on in prison, I'm still not sure about it. But Jaime Osuna's case is very unique. I honestly don't believe that there will ever be another case like Jaime Osuna's.
It wasn't just this case in this time that I was doing good and then, something just happened and look at me, here I'm now. It's just part of my character.
Now, a lot of the case that I'm going to be talking to you about was actually in a documentary. And it was a reporter that went in and interviewed him in 2017. And her name was Olivia LaVoice. So if you get a chance, and there's a podcast on it called The Man with 1,000 Faces, I would suggest listening to that because you will get some insights into a killer or serial killer that I have never heard before. I'm going to try to do some of it on here. Most of it is going to be, like I said, from her interview with him. So with that, let's get started. He was born in Bakersfield, California. This was in March 7th, 1988. And growing up was really hard for Jaime. When he was in his mother's womb, his mother was pregnant with him. His father actually kicked his mother in the stomach, and it left Jaime with an indent in his ear. And he was experiencing abuse even before he was born. Now, the deeper I went into his childhood, the more I felt bad for this guy. He was abused by his father. Then his mother actually broke up with him and went with another man who also abused Jaime. Jaime was the kind of guy that he took all the beatings, ate on the floor like a dog when they would feed him. He would sleep outside sometimes in the rain because they didn't want the stepdad didn't want him inside. And he didn't treat his other kids this way. As a matter of fact, people in his family don't even remember Jaime being his stepson. Jaime started acting out as a child would. He started acting like a bad kid. He admits himself that he would put a cat into the oven for 15 minutes and into the freezer for 15 minutes and back and forth. He was killing animals at an early age. And he had started going in and out of prison from the time he was 15. Now, the time that he did that, he ended up stabbing or trying to stab some kid. There was a party. Jaime went there. He met a woman that was throwing the party. She was a lot older than he was. And this certain guy, some guy, just came out and did something wrong that she didn't like. And Jaime found out about it. Jaime didn't know this woman, but he already felt a connection to her. So Jaime runs into the house, grabs a knife, comes back out and starts trying to slice this guy up. He gets arrested for a year for assault. And when he gets out, he and this woman, they end up getting married because she gets pregnant right away. Now, at the time, she says that Jaime was a very sweet guy, which I don't know how that is because he was trying to stab some guy at a party. And she got, like I said, she was pregnant. She had the baby. Jaime was just over the moon about his kid. But by that time, she had already thrown Jaime out, and he was upset because he couldn't see his kid. And this was one of the things that I found weird because it was kind of like one of the last links to humanity that he had. I think him wanting his child, maybe it would have helped, maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. The only one that would know would be Jaime. But after she severed ties with him, he started to stalk her. And he started to make her life a living hell. He would go to the window. He was following her around. He would call her constantly. And she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Jaime's in the Morocco Motel. And it's November 8th, 2011. And he was at a party. I don't know how this happened, but everybody left, and he was there with one woman who he tortures and kills. Guys, let me tell you right now, he tortures her really bad. Plus, think about this. He tortured her not only with knives, but with scissors. We've heard that before. From the other cases like Blair Ness. We've heard of it with Claudia Nadia Rodriguez. Now remember, he's in a motel, so he would have had to go and get scissors from wherever to use them to kill her, plus the knives, plus whatever else he did. And I'm not going to explain what he did because it is very graphic, guys. I kid you not. And so while she was dead, he decided to have sex with the body. And he even says that having sex with the body or being near the body while it's decomposing, it's stunning. Let me play that part for you here.
See, a person, when they commit a murder, they can shoot somebody. See, when you shoot somebody, the gun is mostly doing all the work. You know, the bullet goes. You see the red splat, the person drops. You might shoot him in the head, his brains might spread. That's it. You might forget about it a year, 2 years later. You might have glimpse. But as you torture and stay with the body even afterwards, the smell, the decomposing, the maggot and fly activity that occurs and all that. You know, when you experience and you go through all that stuff, it stays with you forever. For me, it's not a nightmare. For me, it is a, how can I say, like a prize, like a trophy. It's a picture, it's a memory, it's a photograph that I can go back and look and get pleasure from it.
After he killed her, he called his wife and tells her that he just killed somebody in the hotel and nobody knew about it yet. She freaked out. She calls the police right away, but nobody listens to her. On that 5th day, an exterminator goes into the room and finds the body. Now, let me explain this before I go any further. Her head was decapitated, fingers were missing, and there's a lot of other stuff that I'm not going to go into, but those 2 things are very important. So within 5 days, they find Jaime and they arrest him. And they send him to jail to await charges. And he's in the Lordo detention facility. So while he's there, he starts cutting himself because he becomes, and before I even say this, he started cutting himself at a young age. And I'm going to explain why he cuts himself, or actually I'll let him explain. Listen to this.
I've been a cutter since I was 12 years old, all of my arms since I was 12. And I've been that type of person where as I grow older and older, I seem to get more disconnected emotionally and physically to things. So it's hard to get an emotional sense of things. Like if you say a joke or everybody else is laughing, it's funny, I know it's funny, but I just don't feel it, so, or let's say tattooing or something like that, it gets to the point too to where first it hurts, later on you get older and older, it doesn't, cutting doesn't, then it gets to the point where you're mutilating yourself to feel that adrenaline, to feel that pain. So as far as murder goes and why, is a simple fact that I've done everything that I can do to my body that I could think possible to bring pain and bring feeling upon myself, to make myself feel alive. I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all, basically. So as you kill a person, it's more of a trying to get a rush. It's a rush, it's an addiction, it's a drug. I would rather do that than do drugs. I'd rather do that than have sex with the beautifulest woman in the world.
So after he starts cutting himself while he's in prison, he becomes a self-made Satanist. He doesn't follow books on Satanism. He doesn't follow scripture on Satanism. He doesn't follow, any pastor or anything like that. He becomes a self-made Satanist. And let me tell you, by the time, and this is the first time when he got out of prison, and this is very chilling, guys. When the first time when he went into prison at 15 and he came back out, he had started putting tattoos on his face. And little by little, the tattoos were starting to look like the Joker from Batman. Not just that alone, but he also had gang tattoos, which he was part of a gang, but he claims that none of these were gang affiliated killings. He actually says that he was taught how to kill by somebody when he was 13 and to get away with it. This was something that came up in the interview that freaked out the reporter because they didn't know about any other killings other than the one that they had. I'm going to play that part for you.
How old were you when you committed your first murder?
13.
13?
13 years old.
How old was the victim?
The victim was 27.
How does a 13-year-old get themselves in a situation
and then the other one,
murdering a 27-year-old?
Well, then the other one was in 2007, November 2007. 32-year-old female.
So when you were 13 years old, you killed a 27-year-old male?
Yes.
How? What are the circumstances behind that?
Kind of don't want to get into that because I was young at that age, and that part had to do with how can I say it, a certain, what is that word? I was kind of like a protege, had a teacher. Really don't want to get into that one because I was kind of guided on that one. I was kind of helped with a little bit, but that was the first taste of.
Was that gang related?
No.
No.
None of my crimes are gang related.
But you have someone in your life who taught you how to kill? Is that what you're saying?
There was a person, a friend that to these days I still got friends that way that believe in the same stuff that I believe in.
So now he's in Lerdo detention facility, and he's there for 5 years, which is a long time. The only reason he's there for that long is because he keeps doing things that causes jury or his court dates to be delayed. For instance, one of the times that he's in there, he sneaks out of his cell somehow, because this guy has repeatedly said if he gets a chance, he is going to kill and kill and kill. This is what he does, okay? So one of the times that he's in Lerdo detention facility, he stabs a guy in the face several times. Now, the guy is a lot bigger than Osuna, and he ends up hitting him down and finally stops him, but he realizes that he's cut up. It takes 67 stitches to close this guy up. What Osuna did was he made a shank out of a toothbrush with razors. Now, after this happened, and after the 5 years go by, they end up finding him guilty because he confesses that he did it. So now we come to 2019, which is really weird because on his birthday, and like I told you, he was born March 7th, 1988, and we're talking March 7th, 2019. It's his birthday. He's been in solitary for the last 5 or 7 years, never had a roommate, never had a bunkmate or whatever. And now, all of a sudden, they throw this guy into his jail cell with him within 48 hours. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy wasn't a pickpocket or a burglar. He actually committed murder as well, but he had already served his time. He was almost close to getting out. He had been in jail for 27 years, and he had found Christianity. So here's the thing. When Osuna would cut himself in prison, and I was coming back to that, he would create a pentagram symbol on the wall. Some of the guards and some of the inmates were afraid to walk in there. So much so, because they felt that it was just pure evil in his cell. So they throw this poor guy in. He's a Christian, born again, and he's trying to do good. So I'm assuming something happened between the Satanist and the Christian. All through the night, and we're talking 24 hours, guys, Osuna had covered the window of his cell with a bed sheet, which they're not allowed to do. And they're supposed to look into them every 30 minutes to make sure that everybody is safe. That didn't happen here. In the morning, when they opened the door, Osuna had killed his roommate, beheaded him, took out an eyeball, took off an ear, and took out a lung with a razor that was fastened to string. That's all this guy had. All of that damage, blood on the floor everywhere. And he did all of that with a razor within 24 hours. Now, here's the other thing, too. Osuna is 5'6", 120 pounds. this guy was at least 40 or 50 pounds heavier and taller. How did Osuna get the better of him and was able to do all this? Because, and I hate to say this, but in the autopsy, cutting off his fingers, cutting off his ear, gouging his eyes out, he was still alive before he actually killed him by cutting his head off. After he cut his head off and after he killed him, he wrote on the walls with his blood. Guys, and I'm letting you know now, there are pictures, and I'm going to describe what was in a cell on the walls written. And I suggest do not go look at these pictures, because if you can't handle a dead body, this is really going to mess you up. So please don't look for it, and don't share it, because it's just, this man that got killed deserves better than that. On the walls, in blood, he wrote, "Man of 1,000 faces." Underneath that, he wrote, "I'm not mad, just differently sane." On the pictures, you could see he wrote "ha, ha, 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 ha" so many different times, like the Joker would on Batman. And on the other wall, which is not on the picture, and I actually got this from the interview, there was written this, and I quote, "You will never be lonely. You will never be sad. You will always have me to dance with," end quote. This was from a Batman comic book. Osuna is cutting his face up, his own face, to look like the Joker. On the pictures of this poor guy's head, he has a smiling face like the Joker as well. Now, the only reason I bring this up is because, for one, we think of the Joker and we think of James Holmes, the killer that shot up the movie theater that I did a podcast on. Also, cutting the head off and cutting the fingers off and cutting the lung out reminds me of Omaime Nelson and Taylor Shabiznes. Remember when they said, how did they cut these people so professionally? Osuna did the same thing with a razor. Now, the more that Osuna talked to this investigator, the more that he started to talk about his other crimes, like I told you. He said there was 2 more that he killed, and I'm telling you now, the reporter that actually did investigations on this found a body that resembled Osuna's. It was missing fingers, it was missing a head. The same things that Osuna did, this body was the same. I don't know if Osuna met the demon while he was in the lockup, and that's why he started painting his face. But Osuna says that he had somebody teaching him how to do this when he was 13. This was way before he got prison. Could this have been the same thing that taught these other people how to cut up a body? Remember, the Amityville DeFeo said that a man came up to him in a cloak and gave him the rifle. How do we know something like this didn't happen with Osuna? Because the woman giving the interview always says the person. So he kind of goes with that. And there's little hints here and there that he wants to say it's something else, but he doesn't. At least that's what I get from it. Like I said, if you want, go and listen to this And like I said, it's called The Man of 1,000 Faces, and it's a documentary series, and it's very interesting. Trust me, guys, it gives you that feel of darkness all over you. But it also gives you the insights to this guy's mind who claims that, well, let me let him tell you.
So then you don't want to be known as a serial
No.
Do you know when people see this, of course they're going to say you're a monster. Is that a fair assessment?
A monster. They can call me what they will, but I guess you can say a devil as well. So be a monster, yes, I guess. I don't recognize myself as one, but...
So if you don't recognize yourself as a monster, what do you recognize yourself as?
I recognize myself as one who is not afraid to indulge himself without the consequences and let society mold him into his laws change. And as laws change and society change, people change with it. They let themselves be molded like clay. Me, I'm self-made. I'm self-made. I know what's wrong, what's right. I know what consequences are. I know the inevitable of everything that I do. I know what people that are ignorant to my situation, that are going to judge me or put some type of stigma on me, which is okay, which is fine. That's because of their ignorance. But otherwise, I'm self-made and I'm proud of it.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good week. See y'all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Demon Inside podcast on any podcast platform. A new episode of The Demon Inside will be released every week. Let us know what you think of the episode on all our social media platforms. If you have any questions or comments, go to thedemonincidePodcast@gmail.com or click on the link down below. We would love to hear from you. And to become a Demon Insider, go to our website, thedemonincidePodcast.com. We thank you for listening and hope you will join us next week for a new Demon Inside podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends. I am John Venom, and I'll see you next time, if I don't get possessed. The Demon Inside was written and created by James Porter. It is a production of Venomous Entertainment. Background music is by Lucas King, and the title song Demon Inside was produced by Rice Fulber, composer lyricist Peter Shelley, and performed by Conjure One.